HarperCollins presents The Lighthouse Daughters of Puffin Island by Christie Barlow, read by Charlie Sanderson. For Andrew Snook, our paths have crossed for over 25 years, and as you hit the big 6-0, I was left pondering, what do you get the man who has everything? Apparently, all I could come up with was this lousy dedication. Prologue. Puffin Island, October 1950. The fog is coming in thick and fast, Betty Rose said from where she was standing in the window of Lightkeeper's cottage, which overlooked Blue Water Bay. A raging storm was something the residents of Puffin Island knew only too well, and the red and white lighthouse that stood 600 feet from the harbour was a steadfast sentinel in the gale, its towering frame silhouetted against the turbulent sky. The lighthouse's beacon flickered intermittently, struggling to pierce the dense fog, each rotation casting eerie shadows through the swirling mist. Mac is going to be busy tonight, and with any luck, Eric will be back soon. I don't like the thought of him out at sea in these weather conditions. She hugged her mug of tea, hoping she'd spot her husband, Eric, a fisherman, walking across the harbour soon. Never mind the fog! The baby is coming! Betty swung round to see Selby standing in the doorway, looking pained, clutching her stomach. Pop! Selby's waters broke with the urgency of a dam giving way. 1 minute ago, the two women were savouring the perfect mix of tea and cake, and now they were staring at a puddle on the living room floor. I just knew when I woke up this morning that I felt a little strange. Are you in pain? Am I in pain? Yes! Selby winced as the tightening across her stomach took her breath away. How fast are the contractions coming? Fast enough! Betty looked again towards the window before hurrying over to the chart on the wall. She quickly traced her finger down the dates on the left-hand column. As soon as she reached today's date, she followed the tide times across the chart. Selby, the midwife is never going to be able to cross the causeway. The tide is in, and the fog is only going to get worse. Selby's hands were cupped around her stomach as she gave out another groan. We need to get a message to Mac. Max Harrington was the principal keeper at Puffin Island Lighthouse. It was in the blood. His father, grandfather, and great-grandfather were all keepers before him. There were 3 other assistant keepers he worked alongside, and they had shifts of 6 weeks on, 2 weeks home. This was Selby and Mac's first child, and Mac's home leave had coincided with the baby's due date. They hadn't planned for the baby coming early. With the weather conditions worsening by the second, Betty knew that Mac was going to have his work cut out for him, and that the keepers certainly wouldn't be wasting time looking in towards the bay. Even if they did, it was unlikely they would be able to see the semaphore flags being waved from the harbour. One keeper would be operating the fog signal, whilst the other tended to the light. And besides, there would be no way he could leave the lighthouse. The safety of the sea had to be his first priority on a night like this. Betty was already listening out for the fog signal, an explosive charge at set intervals to alert the ships and guide them safely on their way. I'm not sure we can get a message to Mac, she said gently. Betty, we have to try. I want him to know, Selby pleaded. Betty paused for a second, thinking quickly. Okay, I'll try. Rushing into the hallway and grabbing her coat from the wooden stand, Betty thrust her feet into her boots and clutched her gloves. Where are the flags? Selby pointed to the bag of semaphore flags next to the dresser. I will be 10 minutes maximum. While I'm gone, I want you to make yourself comfy on the bed. Try and stay calm. Selby nodded. Can you remember how to use them? Of course. I stood by your side at the end of the pier watching you communicate with Mac in the first few months he was posted. It was part of the weekly routine to keep the men stationed in the lighthouse connected to their loved ones. Every Sunday at 10 a.m, the friends and family of the lighthouse keepers stood on the end of the jetty at the harbour and communicated by the alphabetic flag signalling system, watched through a telescope by the keepers. The signalling system involved those in the harbour holding the yellow and red flags in
Sample complete. Ready to continue?